right, welcome everyone to the ICSS Sunday Morning Marxist Forum. My name is Paulina Vasilyev, and I am a new member of the Program Committee for ICSS Sunday Morning Sessions. ICSS stands for the Institute for the Critical Study of Society, and we are based in Oakland, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, USA. Our weekly programs are online via Zoom every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time. You can sign up at our website, icssmarks.org, to receive weekly email announcements for our Sunday sessions. Now, you can also view videos of past presentations and send us a message using our contact form on our website, which is, again, icssmarks.org. We want to call your attention to the coffee cup icon on our homepage and our donation page, where you can make a donation to support our programs. We will start, as usual, with a presentation, and after a short break for announcements, we will have a group discussion where you can express your views and ask questions. The program committee has decided to tighten the format of these sessions, so today's session will be 90 minutes long. This is a comradely forum for political discourse and debate. As such, we ask that you show respect for our participants and the moderator of today's session. Please note that the opinions expressed are those of the speakers and participants. They do not necessarily represent those of ICSS. However, we are united in our respect for the work of Karl Marx, and we believe that his work remains relevant today. Our motto is taken from Marx's 11th thesis on Feuerbach. The philosophers have interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. Today's topic is the nation state in the era of capitalist decline. South Asian nation states were formed at the end of World War II, when colonial imperialism was given a body blow by the war. Britain, France, and other European colonial capitalist states were badly weakened. Socialism was in ascendancy, but U.S. capitalism was also advancing. Today, however, capitalism is in decline and is in its most rotten stage in the G7 countries, arguably. Our speaker will examine the impact of these developments in South Asia, including the recent terrorist incidents in Kashmir and the subsequent war between India and Pakistan. Our speaker is our own Raj Sahai. Raj is a retired engineer and has been a researcher and activist with the Institute for the Critical Study of Society, ICSS, which he joined in 2006. He is a U.S. citizen, an immigrant from India, and has lived in Illinois and then California since 1966. A bit more about Raj. He comes from a family of very modest socioeconomic background in India, which suffered 200 years of brutal British rule. His father's modern views and India's independence inspired Raj's early optimism. As a student in India, he gained a strong technical education, but his sensitivity to injustice led him to question nationalism and religion. Raj opposed India's 1962 war with China and later joined Vietnam War protests in Chicago. After moving to the Bay Area, Raj co-founded South Asians for Collective Action and has opposed U.S. wars ever since. The fall of the USSR pushed him to deepen his study of Marxism. Raj remains active in worker struggles and continues to study Marx and Lenin. Please join me in welcoming Raj Sahai. Raj, the mic is yours.
Okay, thank you for that very generous and rather long introduction. Anyway, I'm going to share, this is going to be a slide presentation. Okay, so does everybody see it? But I'll read it for those who are participating on a cell phone. So I'm going to do that reading from the slides, so please be patient with me, even though you can read the slide yourself. So I made some changes a little bit. I even changed the title a little bit. So I'm saying Marxism with the national nation state in the era of decline of capitalism, which is similar what Paulina which I had given earlier. But I have a thesis. The thesis is powerful capitalist countries in G7, led by the US, are unable to control the rise of new powers in former colonies and semi-colonies, where the bourgeoisie has sufficiently developed to consolidate its power over its territory. In the region of South Asia, India is such a country. This is the essence of multipolarity. Other states that are doing it are potentially, there are other states, but I'm focusing on South Asia. Okay, let's see. Okay, I have to move to the next slide. Sorry, give me a second. All right. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry about you cannot read the black writing. I thought I had it white, but anyway, I'm the last person who studied the national question very thoroughly was Stalin, who was also the Commissar of Nationalities. He came from Georgia in Soviet Union. Lenin introduced this subject to him and he carried it forth. So his book was published in 1913. According to Stalin, a nation is a historically constituted stable community of people uh, formed based on four criteria. It has a common language, it has a contiguous territory, it has a common economic life, and it has a common culture. Okay. So it follows from that in South Asia, Kashmir, and in India, India and Pakistan actually divided between the two, and Balochistan, which is also divided between three countries, but large portion of it is in Pakistan, are also nations. Okay, by this definition of a nation. Okay. However, was a competing um, definition by an Austrian Marxist by name Bruno Bauer. And he said a nation is an aggregate of people bound into a community of character by a common destiny. It has a common national character, but not necessarily connected with a common territory, language, or economic life. So Jews in Europe can be a nation. Actually, that was Bruno Bauer. Basically, he was focusing on Jews, and he said that they can be a nation. They are a nation. So from that, it follows that Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, and Christians in South Asia, whether they be in India or Pakistan, are nations, if you follow Bruno Bauer's thesis. Most of us, me included, believe Stalin has been proven right by history. Now, the nation state, according to Stalin, is a different thing. A nation state is not merely a historical category, but a historical category belonging to the epoch of rising capitalism. Okay, that's direct quote from Stalin. The process of elimination of feudalism and development of capitalism is at the same time a process of the constitution of people into these modern nations. And modern is my insertion. Nations is what Stalin says. So this nation under capitalism is not the same nation like Native Americans, Navajo, for example, are a nation, but they are not a capitalist nation, at least not yet. The British, French, German, Italians, and others were formed into nations at the time of the victorious advance of capitalism and its triumph over feudal disunity. Again, a direct quote from Stalin. So from there, it follows that India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, well, this is historical fact, formed as nation states after World War II. That is after the common ruin of British, French, Japanese, and German capitalism, which were in the stage of rotten stage of imperialism that Lenin called imperialism. The US and USSR emerged as the two most powerful poles of power after World War II. This confrontation between the capitalist camp led by the US and the socialist camp led by the USSR ended in 1991 when the USSR disintegrated and Russia and China converted their economies to capitalism, capitalist economies. Now, the significance of the October Revolution, what is the significance in regards to the national question? Stalin has something to say about that, and he summarized in 3 points. First, it has widened the scope of the national question and converted it from the particular question of combating national oppression in Europe into the general question of emancipating the oppressed peoples, colonies and semi-colonies from imperialism. And the second point he makes is it has opened up wide possibilities for their emancipation and the right paths towards it, has thereby greatly facilitated the cause of the emancipation of the oppressed peoples of the West and the East, and has drawn them into the common current of the victorious struggle against imperialism. The third point he makes is it has thereby erected a bridge between the socialist West and the enslaved East. He's talking around 1920, having created a new front of revolutions against world imperialism, extending from the proletarians of the West through the Russian Revolution to the oppressed peoples of the East. So at that point, there was a great possibility that Germany will have a socialist revolution. In fact, there was one, as you know, attempted in 1921. It failed, but it was attempted. Okay, so nationalities in the USSR and decolonization in South Asia. There's a lot of parallel between Soviet Union and the Indian subcontinent in terms of this question. Jammu and Kashmir, which is one state in India, it's also, by the way, the portion that's in Pakistan is also officially Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir joined India legally in 1947. I know everybody's very interested in Kashmir, so I focused on that. Peasant Muslim majority was ruled by a Hindu king. The peasants saw India as a better bet because land reform was promised by the Congress party. The Hindu king was threatened by invaders sent from Pakistan in 1947. So Pakistan started right away with this kind of stuff. So it was both legal and by popular mandate for Jammu and Kashmir to join India in 1947. Now, you can question it during question answer, I will answer it. But for Pakistan, it was unacceptable. Why? Because it denied its own reason for existence, which is Muslims are a nation. That's the theory on which Pakistan is based, which is actually the theory of Bruno Bauer. Stalin had given the oppressed nations of Imperial Russia, by the way, 57% of the population of the USSR were the nationalities, freedom to secede, but convinced them with some difficulty and some exceptions to stay within the USSR with a concept of regional autonomy, with collective equal rights to the rights of Great Russians. So the Great Russians, he convinced them, cannot oppress them anymore as they did in the past, because together you'll be no less, in fact, be more powerful than Russian province. Autonomy of Jammu and Kashmir, called Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, was on a similar principle that was promulgated, I think, in 1950, if I'm not mistaken. In South Asia, only India qualified to be a nation state, and this is my major assertion here. Neither Nepal nor Pakistan, later which split into Pakistan and Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka qualified. And I'll get into a little more later on. Indian capitalist class had developed but was not strong enough to control the entire British ruled India as a nation state when the British were forced by the combination of popular revolts against them and Britain having exhausted its power, economic and military in Second World War, and it withdrew from the subcontinent in 1947. Reason I'm reading it's because otherwise I will just take 2 hours to just talk here. Okay, now I show you a map of Indian subcontinent, or what was known as British India at that in the period of 1934 to 1947. And this political things were always shifting in the previous 100 years, the conquests and so forth. But this is just a decade prior to British leaving this continent. So first thing to note here is the large number of feudal states, 552 in numbers, that had to be consolidated into a country. This was the challenge. This is probably no other country faced such a challenge and carried out successfully, with the exception of splitting of Pakistan from India. This is a great accomplishment of Indian nationalist movement, which is national liberation movement. Now, 28% of the population of India was directly ruled by the British government. 72% were ruled by the feudal class, but they were completely under control of the British. So they were free to do what they wanted within their territories, but within the rules set by the British. Now, notice this yellow area on the top here, where my cursor, I don't know if it's visible to you, is north, completely in the north, the yellow area. That is Jammu and Kashmir in that period. That included part of it, it's called Aksai Chin, which was wrested by China in 1962, which was won over from China by the local king, the Sikh kingdom, and China took it back in 1962 war with India. And here parts of it is in Pakistan and part of it is ceded to China by Pakistan. So this is that. And then this other area in the western portion, extreme western portion of Pakistan is interesting. That's Balochistan. Now, Balochistan is also divided in three countries: Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan. And it was for a while a free country of sorts, but was a nation, not a modern nation state. Still isn't. Okay, this is where in the extreme western corner is situated the Gwadar port, which is very close to the Strait of Hormuz, which is very much in focus right now. Okay, now you can see how many these colors indicate different feudal territories in India, and of course also British ruled territories. So I'll move on from here to the next slide. Rise of the bourgeoisie in India. There's an interesting character there by the name of Dada Bhai Nairoji. He was born in 1825, died in 1917. He lived full 92 years of age. He was a businessman and an intellectual. And he was a Parsi. Parsi is the immigrants who came from Iran when Islamic wave hit Iran, and those who didn't want to give up Zoroastrian religion, which was the religion prevailing before Islam, they moved out and some of them came to India. I believe it's still 1 million, maybe a little less than 1 million remain now. There were probably more than 1 million before. He was also one-time British MP. And he was not against the British ruling India initially, okay? He was one of the founders of Indian National Congress a nationalist political party in 1885. So Communist Party of India was formed in 1925. So you see, they already had 40 years to organize the Indian bourgeoisie, while the communists were in diapers in 1925 in India. Now, he also wrote a book, Poverty and the Un-British Rule in India. He called it un-British because England itself was a civilized country, but how they ruled India was barbaric, in his opinion, and how they exploited and did terrible things, causing famine, poverty, extreme poverty, and so forth. So he provided the first critical analysis of the British colonial rule and its impact on the peoples of India. All right, next slide. Also a picture, two important individual personalities. Muhammad Ali Jinnah on the left and Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, also known as Mahatma Gandhi, on the right. Now, the Congress Party, as I mentioned, was formed in 1885. Muslim League was formed in 1906. Jinnah joined the Congress Party in 1906, but he quit in 1913 and joined Muslim League. He was president of Muslim League in 1916. Gandhi never held any post in Congress Party. He died without that post. He was killed. He was assassinated in 1948 in Delhi by a right-wing extremist Hindu. Not a Muslim. He was assassinated by a Hindu fanatic, right-wing fanatic. Or not fanatic, he was sort of organized Hindu groups were behind him because they held him responsible for giving Pakistan what it was its due, money and so, because after formation of Pakistan, Gandhi said we should live in peace with Pakistan. So here's South Asia today, okay? This image that you see on your screen. Afghanistan is not in South Asia. It's in Asia, but not South Asia. So I'm excluding Afghanistan from it. So basically, I consider India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka as part of South Asia. Myanmar is also not included in South Asia. By some imagination, you can say it, but for me, this is how I divide it. Now, this economic data here is from IMF projection for 2025. I suppose it be by the end of 2025. That's their projection. India will have a GDP of 4.15 trillion. Pakistan 411 billion. So India's GDP is about 10 times, a little over 10 times. Bangladesh is actually projected to have 460 billion. It was considered a basket case in one time, but Bangladesh actually GDP will be higher than that of Pakistan, even though the population is smaller. It's very densely populated area, more densely than Pakistan, but Nepal, 36 billion, Bhutan, 13 billion, Sri Lanka, more substantial, 108 billion. Okay, so I go to my next slide. Okay, here's Pakistan. Its population 2023 data. This data is from 2023. Today, the Pakistan population is 253 million, but I'm just going to be consistent with 2023. So here, the most populous state in Pakistan is Punjab, 128 million, which you can see here is this one. Sindh is down below. It's the next most populous. Is 56 million in 2023. Next most populous is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, also sometimes called Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. 41 million. That's interesting because these are Pushtu peoples, same as in Afghanistan. And what divides them into two nations is one Mr. Durrand of British Empire who drew a line, as you know, they did it also in the Middle East. So They took away something from Afghanistan, which was weak, incorporated into British Empire, and that ultimately ended up in Pakistan. There was a deadline for it to expire, and that deadline is expired, so there is a conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan over this area. Then there is Gilgit-Baltistan, which is completely north there, okay, which is sparsely populated, minerally rich, population of 1.3 million. China's Belt and Road comes through there. That's where some of the Chinese engineers and technicians have been killed. Then in Balochistan here, which is population of 23 was about 15 million. I understand it's closer to 19 million now, so I have read. But this is a minerally rich, mostly desert area. It comprises about 44% of the area of Pakistan. And that's where there's a secessionist movement, now pretty active secessionist movement. And it fits the qualification of a nation, as I will talk later, but not that of a nation state. Okay, so next slide is, this is 2025. I have once again said Gilgit-Baltistan. I gave you the numbers of people, Azad Kashmir, population 4 million. Now those are ethnic Kashmiri population is a small part of what is called Azad Kashmir. Azad means free Kashmir, which is this area. We don't consider, I mean, some of us don't consider it particularly free, but that's the name Pakistan has given them as if they freed it under their concept of what a nation is. I mean, why should they should be in Pakistan? Because they're Muslim majority. Now, that part, if you can see my cursor, that is in here. The rest is Gilgit-Baltistan. Part of it was ceded to China, by the way, in some agreement with China. China and Pakistan are great friends. Now, Indian part of Kashmir. And India, as you know, is a population of 146 billion, 1.46 billion. Okay, sorry, 1460 million. Jammu and Kashmir, and this is eastern part is Ladakh, very large area, Ladakh, which borders with Akshay Chin, and that's where is line L, I think it's called, anyway, it's also line of control, but it's called not LOC. LOC is with Pakistan, which is here. Anyway, a population of Jammu and Kashmir, which has been a state for about like that for at least 100 years, since the Sikh Empire conquered it. Previously from a Muslim leader, and Islam came there in the 13th century. Before that, it was Hindu. The population was Hindu. And these populations changed religion in opposition, I think, with the feudal lords, you know, that's what happens. Jammu and Kashmir, because they exploit them so much. Ladakh is sparsely populated. And so Jammu and Kashmir, 68% are Muslim, Hindus are 28%, Sikhs are 2%, Buddhists are 1%. Now, Kashmir Valley has predominantly Sunni Muslim, but even other parts of Kashmir have Shias and other sects of Islam, but they're all Muslims. So 98 or 99, 98% of Kashmir itself, of Indian part, is Muslim. Okay, 22 minutes gone. Okay, formation of South Asian nation states. I'll try to speed up. The Republic of India, or Bharat, this is what the official name of India is, Republic of India, or now it's called Bharat. It was in the constitution. Bharat was the alternate name. Now BJP wants to assert that as his name. Formed as a secular, I would say quasi-socialist. Quasi means not quite, and actually not really, but it had, it was that country in 1947 containing many nations, okay? India constituted many nations. It was a country with many nations. It is now a capitalist nation state governed by an ideologically right-wing BJP, but one with an anti-poverty program. Poverty rate has been reduced to 24% from around 40% 15 years ago or 20 years ago. Extreme poverty is reduced to 5.3%. So that's a significant, and that's the real reason for the popularity of BJP. Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Now that's the official name of Pakistan, called Islamic Republic of Pakistan, formed in 1947 on Muslims are a nation thesis, causing large-scale violence throughout the subcontinent. It maintained feudal states. It split in 1971. The eastern part became Bangladesh. Military controls its governance from behind, by the way, now. Previous poverty rate is 45%, so it's about twice the poverty rate in India. Extreme poverty is 16.5%, so roughly 3 times that of India. Now, I haven't got this kind of detail in Bangladesh. It'll be too much to go into all the nations in detail in this limited time. But extreme poverty in Bangladesh is 8%, which is half that of Pakistan. It's not as low as India. India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Nepal formed during the victorious advance of socialism, but it was also the time of regeneration of capitalism, brought back from the moribund stage that Lenin describes imperialism as a stage of moribund by 2 world wars. Now, with the US as the workshop of the world, that's what happened in 1945. So there's some vibrancy to capitalist production. In power, I'm not saying the imperialism didn't remain, but in terms of economic essence, it had degraded. Okay, now I'm going to give you some comparisons of India and Pakistan. So Pakistan on the left, I'll read that out. Formation of independent states, this is from their constitution. For Muslims in regions of India, which is what they claim, where they were in a majority. It failed. This concept has failed, obviously because Muslims in India almost are in the same numbers as Pakistan. First of all, they didn't join Pakistan. Secondly, it is split. So Bangladesh became separate. Autonomous and sovereign constituent national units. This concept also failed. East Pakistan seceded. Balochistan is fighting to secede. The constitution states that all laws are to conform with the injunctions of Islam as laid down in the Quran and Sunnah. Islam negates the constitution. Once you bring any religion into your constitution, you have negated, because constitution is about freeing the individual from the control of religion and feudal control. And this is the contradiction in Pakistan as a modern state. I'm not saying Pakistan is a feudal state now, or I'm not saying it's like Afghanistan was. In 1973, Constitution of Pakistan also created certain institutions such as the Shariat Court and the Council of Islamic Ideology to channel the interpretation and application of Islam. So there have been people who've been arrested because they said something blasphemous about Muhammad Sahib. Democracy is really denied in Pakistan. It is why army chief rules, and these are the constitution itself. With compromise like that, how can you have democracy? It is why army chief rules, and army is the most powerful institution, not say Air Force or Navy. Air Force is very professional, by the way. And army is too professional. I'm not saying Pakistan army is not a weak army. The president and the prime minister actually are subordinated in power, in reality, to the army chief, though not formally. Okay, now, what about India? India meets Stalin's definition of a country of many nations that have integrated as provinces. Since India was created, slowly integration took place. We call it integration, which means from nations, they became provinces. In other words, they accept the whole country. So it's a nation state India now, except for Jammu and Kashmir, which was in the middle. And because this was the Article 370 granting them autonomy, and which was removed in 2019 by BJP, and it is in the process of being merged as any other province of India. Now, there are people who don't agree with it, including Pakistan. In Kashmir, there's discomfort with it and complain about it, but it is in that process. Sovereignty. India is a sovereign nation, makes its own laws and conducts its own affairs without external interference. I know I'm going to get some opposition to it, and I'll welcome those questions. Formally socialist, not really. It's actually Constitution says it's a socialist state. And I would say it's not really, but certain practices of socialism are still in its government. And poverty alleviation programs are part of it. Secularism. India is a secular state by its constitution. Secularism has been degraded by the BJP. But Muslims can and do hold high offices in India even today, though fewer than their percentage of population. We can discuss why in the discussion. Democracy. The government is elected by the people and operates on democratic principles, though politics has become more sectarian. So India has remained democratic throughout. There was a period of emergency under Indira Gandhi, but that was done under constitution and it was removed. So it maintained its democracy. Economic growth has been 7% per year for the last nearly 3 decades, not quite 3 decades, maybe 25 years, and is projected to be the third largest economy in the world in 3 to 4 years. IMF projects it to be the fourth largest economy this year. So, conclusion. I'm going to conclude. I'm ahead of my time. South Asian nations in the decline of capitalism. So, as I said, my thesis is that unipolar power is breaking down. The U.S., of course, is trying to return it to it. It is futile, in my opinion. Anyway, so these are the conclusions. Pakistan, a client state of U.S. as now also of China, is definitely a client state of China. And both are vying to control, both these two very powerful countries, China and US. Pakistan uses state-sponsored of Islamic jihadis for terrorism against India. They actually has been doing this for at least 35 years, okay? Now, Balochistan in Pakistan is a nation, but not a nation state because it doesn't yet have the modern bourgeoisie, there is developing modern bourgeoisie, but it was like India in the end of 19th century, so it's not. It's minerally very rich, has a strong secessionist movement. Both the US and China have great interest in this because of its mineral riches. Bangladesh, formerly East Pakistan, it was split from Pakistan in 1971. Islamism is growing in Bangladesh. US and China are competing to make it a client. Sri Lanka, China or India compete for influence. It's a Sinhalese nationalism. That was the tragedy of Sri Lanka when Tamil Tigers were active. And this Sinhalese nationalism is very narrow-minded. It's bad for minority Tamils, but that's what won. Nepal, earlier a client state of India, now China has greater sway there. Bhutan is a client of India, it's protectorate of India, but China is vying to make it its own client. Again, these are not nation states. India is the only successful nation state in South Asia. I don't think Pakistan is a successful one, and the reason I've mentioned already why it is not successful. Jammu and Kashmir, not a nation state, okay? Pakistani part of Jammu and Kashmir gained by invasion in 1948 lacks capitalist development. Indian side of Jammu and Kashmir has capitalist development. A Muslim majority, it is in the process of full integration with India. I don't think it has a place outside as a separate nation, which many people argue it should have. I don't think it does. And Kashmiris understand that now, although in the late 80s, they had this desire to go there. So now I'll end my talk with these four future scenarios of possible scenarios for South Asia. First, a social revolution establishing a union of Soviet Socialist republics of South Asia, and we can call it USSR SA. Okay, that'll make all of us very happy as Marxists here. Number two, Indian capitalism absorbing Pakistan as India grows. India is projected to be third largest within 3 years economy in the world. And it absorbs then Bangladesh and Pakistan into what the right wing in India calls Akhand Bharat, means unbreakable India. Nepal and Sri Lanka, they have always been separate countries. India will not go there. But they will be this dependency, rivaling China in power. So that's the second possibility. And it's not necessarily in order of what's most likely. Third possibility is Pakistan balkanizing India with China's help. Now, if you think I'm making this up, this is expressed by the Muslim clerics in Pakistan very recently. And the army chief saying, well, we are a different people than Hindus. Basically he was saying Hindus are a nation. So he was trying to, so there's a connection between those Muslim clerics who hate India because it's a Hindu, and they grab Kashmir, which is Muslim majority. So Pakistan, they were talking about balkanizing India. That's part of their goal. Balkanizing India with China's help. China is all-weather friend, using terrorism and promoting religious sectarianism in India. China becoming the hegemonic power in the entire South Asia. That's a possibility. And the fourth is US reestablishing its unipolar power, dominating the entire South Asia as the hegemonic world power. Okay, with that, I stop here, and I've taken 36 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Raj. I will stop share. Okay, I'll stop share.
Great. Excellent. All right, so after a few short announcements, we will have questions and comments from participants. To ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the reactions button and then choose raise hand. Usually that's located at the bottom of your Zoom window. Please keep your questions short and ask one question at a time to allow everybody to participate. And also keep in mind that this is a comradely forum for political discussions. So please show your respect to others and the moderator. Now for upcoming programs, the Sunday, June 22nd section is currently being finalized, so please stay tuned and check our website, icssmarks.org for that. On Sunday, June 29, that's in 2 weeks, we'll have the pleasure of hosting John Bellamy Foster, professor of sociology at the University of Oregon and editor of the monthly review. John Bellamy Foster will be speaking about the MAGA ideology and the Trump regime. So we'd like to remind you that you can sign up for email notifications of our programs at icssmarks.org, where you can also find links to video recordings of our past programs. You can contact us with feedback, suggestions for future programs and topics, and make a donation to support our Sunday morning programs. And I will start now by taking the stack. We'll hear from, is it Kishore? Then Philippa, and then...
Yes, that is correct.
Great. Go ahead, Kishore. You can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Raj. Hi, everyone. This is Kishore Deshpande. This is my first meeting with ICCS, and Glad to be here. So, Raj, my first question to you is, you are assuming that India is a fully capitalist state, or it's a semi-feudal, semi-capitalist state? Because if you look at the economy of India, very little has changed as far as the production relations are concerned when it comes to the majority of the country in rural India.
Okay, should I answer it?
Please.
Okay. Yeah, no, I consider India to be a capitalist uh, country with a capitalist economy. Feudal relations don't exist in India, and if they exist, you'll have to give me some example. Uh, feudalism had feudal land reform, although it was not a radical land reform like China and Soviet Union, is being carried out with the idea of converting those who own the land to become capitalists. And by and large, that has happened. So feudal relations means you have a state, E-S-T-A-T-E, state, and you have serfs who are in your tow. Now, that's not the same as lower caste being dominated by upper caste. That predates feudalism. So sometimes that people consider that to be a sign of feudalism, but then that's tribal. That's even before tribalism. So I think I won't agree with that. I think India is substantially a capitalist country.
Okay, thank you. I have a difference of opinion, but I guess I'll share some material with you offline and we can go from there, I guess. The basic
Okay,
question is
and
really, you are still looking at castes. According to traditional Marxism, caste is a part of superstructure. But there is research that shows that before pre-British India, there were no classes as economic classes in India. It was castes, and I don't know if you have access to that research material. And the castes still exist as a means of exploitation and governance in India and majority states. That's why it can be characterized as semi-feudal, semi-capitalist. And I'm not just trying to arguing for the sake of argument, because then it has a bearing on what should be the strategy for activists moving forward. That was the point. But we can share some notes, exchange some
yeah,
notes later.
I put my email in the chat, so you
Sure.
can send it to me. Yeah, and we can connect and talk later.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kishore, for your comments. And now we'll go to Philippa, followed by Citizen of the Planet One. Go ahead, Philippa.
Yes, thank you very much for a very clear talk. I was wondering, based on Manuel Wellstein's theory about world systems, whether you thought that India was a core country, and if so, what kind of resources is it expropriating from other surrounding countries in South Asia?
This is the theory that India is a regional imperialist.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't share that view. I consider, all stronger countries take advantage of weaker countries. That's a given. In capitalism, the big business eats out of the plate of small business, petit bourgeois, right? That's everybody knows. Of course, workers it exploits, takes away their wage, part of their labor is appropriated. So that's how capitalism functions. So I believe people have this idea of regional or sub-imperialism thesis. I don't share that. I think to me, countries, the concept of imperialism associated with a certain level of monopoly control. So India has monopoly corporation in the region, they have power corporations and so forth, and they probably do take advantage of higher rates to other countries, but they also do it inside where they can. So I think that's the nature of capitalism. capitalists will charge you more, more if you don't have access to the market to get it. So but I don't share that kind of classification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I give the floor to Citizen of the Planet One, I'd like to take a question from the chat, if everybody agrees. It's a question for Raj from Janet, who says, piggybacking on Kishore's comments, would you talk about or more about the state of the caste system in India and how it operates? And do any of the other South Asia nations and nation states have caste systems?
Yes, first of all, last part of it is in Pakistan, among Muslims and among Sikhs, both religions actually say that everybody's equal in front of God. So Muslims, all the Muslims can pray in the mosque as long as they are of the same particular sect of Muslim, Shia or Sunni, whatever. To that extent they do, but in every other way they follow caste. Same thing with Sikhs. And actually, my friend Dave Danoa, if he's in the room here, when his turn comes, I hope he can explain how that happens in Punjab. But the reason for caste remaining strong, I cannot explain, but it seems to continue. But in some ways, that thing is also in Europe, in United States. Not everybody's socially considered equal. It's a social stratification, but now it's absorbed into the capitalist system. Okay, so if you're poor Dalit, for example, you're disadvantaged now also as a poor person. And there are Dalit leaders now. In fact, Dalits have made some progress, more than the women have. So it depends on the organization to fight. So I think that's, in United States, when I first came, I was in Chicago, and the Polish immigrants were called Polacks. There were all kinds of Polak jokes. They were doing menial work, or, they were considered not very intelligent. Same thing had happened to Italians. It's that sort of thing. So in India, the Dalits who were suppressed so violently by the feudal elites, that has gone down. It has not eliminated, but it's not the same. So capitalism is kind of leveling the field in the workplace. Socially, people don't marry outside of the caste. And when you try to do that, at least in my time, that if you try to do that, it was mostly not successful. They will intervene, and sometimes they're even violent. They kill the boy or the girl. But I don't know if it's a good enough answer for you.
Well, thank you, Raj. If Janet has more, she may raise her hand. We'll now hear from Citizen, followed by Mehmet, and then Eugene. Go ahead, Citizen.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a couple of comments and then my question. There is a Berkeley editor of a literary and arts magazine called India Star. I don't know if India Star is still in existence or not. And I knew him personally. His name's C.J. Walia. So I don't know if Raj ever knew him, but I was really surprised. He is a secular person, but I was always surprised that he was extremely anti-Muslim, but not anti-Hindu, which after all came up with the caste system. So as I said, he wasn't religious at all, but I always wondered why he was so extremely Muslim, but not anti-Hindu, or for that matter, anti-Christian. It also seems to me that a nation, when, as I understood it, Stalin said that a nation has one culture, it seems to me that there are many examples of nations that have more than one culture. My question is, Raj, in the email announcement description of your talk today, you said that capitalism is in decline. And as you and others here know, from my previous comments at these ICSS Zoom events, I've been highly analytically critical of those leftists who have been saying for many decades that capitalism or US empire is in imminent collapse. And I will also add that also said by leftists for many decades that capitalism is in imminent or current decline. So if I did not misread that description of your talk, I'm wondering on specifically what base do you say that capitalism is in decline? Thank you.
Yeah, the capitalism is in decline as a system that can keep on advancing production and meeting more and more people into it and meeting more and more human needs. In that sense, it's a decline. It was a very revolutionary system to begin with, but it reached a certain stage of stagnation and had to go to monopoly phase. It emerges to monopoly phase. And that's the stage Lenin called imperialism in 1916. Now, the two world wars destroyed a lot of capital, so then it became productive again. So decline in the sense of being able to move forward and develop more ability to produce and supply useful products. In that sense, it's decline. And profit rate basically is under pressure globally, although regionally profit in countries like India is not under pressure. So India has a chance to advance more in capitalism than, let's say, China, and China has greater than United States and European countries. So one sign of that is all this tension and regional wars going on. Okay, that's now they've always gone on, but previously it was a contention between the Soviet bloc and the capitalist bloc. But now, some people believe China is socialist, but whether you believe that or not, it's a capitalist mechanism that works there. So they produce commodity and sell them. So from my point of view, it's a capitalist system. So I think now the tension is because it has reached a point where they are competing for markets, for materials and cheap human labor. In that sense, it's in decline, and it cannot be put together, in my opinion. And the only reason wars haven't gone to nuclear because everybody is afraid that they themselves will be consumed by it. So they're stuck there. Can't have a global war which can reduce excess capital. At the same time, the system is not working properly. That's what I call decline, because all systems have a life, and capitalism now that doesn't mean if people have been saying it for 20 years, this isn't true, because these things have longer horizons than our human life. So it can be declining for 40, 50 years.
So dare I ask when you think it's going to fall if you say it's in decline?
Well, I can't predict. Marxists avoid making predictions because there are so many factors that makes that thing very difficult to say. But you can sense the tension, Middle East tension, India-Pakistan tension, China-US tension, Russia-Europe tension. I mean, this is unusually high level of tension than, say, 20 years ago.
Well, I'm certainly anti-capitalist without a doubt, but I just have heard this stuff so long. It's like, okay, when is it going to finally fall? I think capitalism has been very adaptable, even though I'm certainly anti-capitalist.
All right, thank you, citizen. Let's, I'm sorry, Raj, unless you wanted to make a comment.
That's okay.
Okay, great. We'll hear from Mehmet, followed by Eugene, and then Richard Wright. Go ahead, Mehmet.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raj. I appreciate your presentation, which was informative and giving all the contradictions as you've mentioned. But as you very rightly predicted when you came to the sovereignty of India, well, today we can look at every single nation that you have on the map is sovereign. But sovereignty comes from the concept of its bourgeoisie, assuming that these countries are capitalist and they have classes, bourgeois, and so forth, is that when it originated, it was the class interest of the national bourgeoisie that created these nations and the nation states. And many times, over material gains, these interests clashed, which led to war. Now, my question is that the bourgeoisie, the upper classes, the capitalists of India, and their class interest, do you think that it clashes with imperialism? I should say US imperialism at this point. And if it does, are you seeing a war brewing between India and the United States? And in your last slides, you mentioned 4 scenarios where things could develop. And in these scenarios, one was China becoming hegemonic in the region. Since you reject sub-imperialism, are you going to accept that China is an imperialist country because they are after these, they have aspirations here, or a sub-imperialist country? Or will China become imperialist if and only if it touches India? Thank you.
Well, I think sovereignty in the sense of that you substantially, I mean, every country makes some accommodation with somebody else to see their interest. That means their majority class interest. But a nation state, it isn't, you can't isolate the interest of the people completely from the ruling class interest. Okay, they are different, but there's some common. For example, the idea of nation, means the set of people who live there, who share a culture, they share language and many other things, territory. Under capitalist rule, a dominant power is that of the capitalist class. So in that sense, India is a capitalist state now. It's not a collection of nations, and it has limited power. It's not as powerful as the United States or China, but it is vying for that power. Okay, India. I mean, what is power? Power is not just economic power. Power is also how its ruling structure is stable or not stable, its military power, all those things combined. I don't see India and United States going into a war situation, and I don't see China and United States going into a war situation, mainly because now with nuclear weapons and delivery systems, nobody's safe. India is not in position to deliver a nuclear weapon over the United States, but so India will not go there. It will do everything to avoid it. But that doesn't mean India would, for example, India did not, President Nixon sent Kissinger to say to Indira Gandhi in 1971, don't break Pakistan, because it was the Indian army that broke Pakistan. And India made alliance with the USSR, and USSR said, go ahead. We'll see if they intervene. So we will be there. So they went ahead and did it. So today also, why Trump is speaking the way he's speaking. He was saying we made peace between India and Pakistan. That wasn't true, but he wants to get credit. He's also praising Pakistan. He's invited his general for this Army Day parade today. But, those are India is not swayed by these. See, their capitalist class knows its longer term interest and follows it. Sometimes it gives in, it's not as powerful. So it's, in that sense, it's sovereign, in my opinion.
Okay, we'll now hear from Jean.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There was one. What about China's imperialism or sub-imperialism, and if and only if it touches India?
No. China is a look as somebody else had said earlier. You can pick and choose. If your system is capitalism, it grows into overproduction, which is true with China. It has to acquire imperialistic tendencies. And it's not only India. I mean, Gwadar port is being developed by China. And for the mineral riches of Balochistan, and anything that gets in the way will be shattered. I mean, Balochis will be shattered. And a socialist China will not defend them. Pakistan will do it for them. So, it's already, I mean, Pakistan has become a client state. It's a great power. I won't say that defines it, but yeah, I would say China has entered the stage of imperialism, its economic model. But it's not at the rotten stage, as higher rotten stage. I mean, there are different stages within imperialism. Most rotten, and Lenin uses that terminology, most rotten and things like that. I think that's true of the Western countries. And Trump is trying to reindustrialize USA, and I don't know if it'll happen. I kind of doubt it. So, no, China is at the threshold, or I would say it's in the imperialist stage. Yes, I mean Chinese were involved in this war between India and China. Chinese jets, you must have seen the claim that they shot down so many Indian planes, and that makes market for Chinese planes. Okay, and that's why it was being promulgated. They were very active. And they did shoot down at least one plane, but so their economic interests have become this commodity interest, right? That's where the capitalism but the imperialist stage and acting as an imperialist, I think China is there. I mean, the South China Sea, Philippines, Japan, all that contradiction with all these countries is intensifying. It's not one-sided as lots of people say it's all the United States doing it. It's not that way. I think it's China also. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jean, go ahead.
Okay, well, my first reaction is, wow, thank you, Raj. This was great. You've taken a really, really complex issue here and made sense of it, which, I think is amazing. So again, thank you for doing that. And my question or my comment is more, we have two kind of hostile powers that are both nuclear powers. And we have to worry about if there is a conflict. The question is whether or not it will go nuclear or not. And that is not a question just for, Iran or India and Asia, because, a nuclear war has its own logic. And periodically I watch the film Dr. Strangelove, which is kind of a comment on that. But I just want to get your comment on the issue of nuclear war in general and the possibility of us going into that. But again, thank you so much for your talk.
Sure. Now, thank you, Gene. So, this is the same tension we used to feel between Soviet Union and United States. It's like, when I first came here, there were bomb shelters at the University of Illinois, and I saw this sign everywhere. I didn't know what it was. I asked somebody, he said, well, these are bomb shelters. The yellow and black, the circle with 6 division alternating black and yellow. Now, there was no escape from radiation there, so it was kind of like public relations. Pakistan and India, in that sense, have acted rationally. India never even used the N word, okay, in this fight, never used it. Pakistan repeatedly said that they have tactical nuclear weapons because Indian army could overwhelm Pakistani army, much more powerful. But so they have tactical nuclear weapons, but they didn't employ those. And neither side crossed the border either. It was all fight was done on the border, or whenever they fired missiles, they did from their own territory, by the way. So the same thing that was going on, and they have hotlines and so forth between Director General of Military Operations on both sides, so forth. So it was a similar situation. It's a regional rather than, and all said and done, Pakistani military is a rational actor in this sense because they value their own lives too, and they have a lot of wealth they've collected, and they have lived well. And same with the bourgeoisie of India lives well, although military doesn't control Indian politics. So far, it is the bourgeoisie. So I think the worry is there. I mean, I also worry about it, but I think this, but what India said was that we cannot use this threat by Pakistan to keep on doing terrorism. So they said we call their nuclear bluff. And they said, if you do this, we're going to come and hit you in all your strategic airfields and even areas close to where you store your nuclear weapons. India showed that with their missiles, and the missiles did hit. Ultimately, Pakistan, now this is debated, but in my opinion, Pakistan was forced to come to terms with it, and that's why the war stopped.
Thank you.
Okay. Richard Wright now, followed by Alan, then Goulden.
Thank you, Raj. I just had a real quick question, and it has to do with something you stated right off the top of the of your presentation. Right at the very first of your slide, you talked about the capitalists were needed to. I forget exactly how you phrased it, but they withdrew. They were forced to leave their nation states. Or my question is, were they forced to leave, or did they leave because it was economically impossible to sustain it?
Okay, let me clarify. You're asking how India integrated these nations into one nation state, right? That's your question?
Well, it's a little bit broader, I think, than that. I mean, in large measure, the colonialism was British in nature, and my question was general. You seem to think that they withdrew willingly versus they were forced to withdraw because they can no longer maintain economically they can maintain their states. And I'm wondering if that's where you sit on that. That I just wanted a point of clarification.
Both, because the popular revolt, and it was led by Gandhi. Okay, it was a big tent. From communists to the rightists, all were under Gandhi's tent, and they basically led by the bourgeoisie. So Gandhi, in a sense, was a peculiar guy, but it was for the benefit of the Indian bourgeoisie. Yeah. So what happened was that the cost of maintaining Indian colony was increasing because of the revolt, and the Germans in the Second World War had lost the war, but they also did a lot of damage to the British economy. So therefore, Britain had become a very heavily indebted nation, indebted to the United States and other capitalists. So it could not continue, but the part of the reason was the revolt. So which one is a higher reason? I would say that their weakening was the higher reason, but both are combined to get that result, forced to withdraw.
Okay, thanks. That's, like I said, just a point of clarification.
Okay.
All right. Next is Alan, followed by Golden.
Raj, can you comment on the state of the Indian working class and the communist movement in particular as it's playing out on this stage of South Asia? Also, sneak in a quick second question. Can you comment on the relationship between Russia and India, as well as China? Is there really a chance that they're going to be able to, the US will be able to split China and India? I'm sorry, China, India, and Russia. So, can you comment quickly on the working class and the communist movement?
Yeah, so the working class movement in India its Indian working class is very large, but the one that is under industrial unions, trade unions, is like here, very small, somewhere between 8 and 9% of the workers are in there. Most of them are working in smaller industries, and they are not organized in unions. Total size of the working class is about 550 million, and there is a militant communist movement among them, but the union that is gaining, they used to control the trade union, communist trade unions used to be the largest. Now it is the BJP organized trade unions that have more workers. So I think it is because of the decline of communist, what has happened to 20th century communism globally is also happened in India. So the communists have lost state powers, in Bengal, West Bengal, and so forth. In general, the workers in India see their hope in BJP rather than the communists. So communist movement is there, but is weakened, and I don't think in the short run I see them being able to turn it around. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's how I see it. On the Russian question, Indian-Russian relation will not break because of the United States. Okay, Russia wants India, Russia, China. RIC. There's a separate group called RIC, Russia, India, China. Putin's trying to promote that and keep India away from having more influence and more relations with the United States. India needs to balance China. So who will balance it? Russia has become more dependent on China because of the war. And so India cannot completely see that Russia will come to its aid, but even China is much more powerful than India. So India is trying to balance it with the United States, but India will not become somebody's pawn. That's what I'm saying. It's ruling class, bourgeois ruling class has never caved in to being an appendage of one or the other power. And it skillfully maneuvers. And now it is strong enough. I mean, it is developing export of its missiles and defense systems too. So it is not only China that gained some market share on its jets and its jet-fired missile, which was very successful against India, but Indian missiles which penetrated through Chinese supplied defenses also is very popular now, and they're exporting that to countries that want to buy it. So I think it's going to remain a complex game in this sense. Russia also doesn't want to be dependent on China. So India helps balance China for Russia. It's not just Russia is needed by India to balance China. China is an 800-pound gorilla now. It's a big power. So, I mean, here Mearsheimer's idea of geopolitics on realism, I think, is closer to the mark. This power thing between countries. There's no international law that can prevent people from going to war with each other. The international law is ignored. This is a jungle when it comes to countries. So it's everybody wants to be more powerful. And those who can organize their economy can be. India is one such country. It's not equal to China, but it is, I would say, emerging power.
Okay. We have about 10 minutes left in the program. Let's hear from Gulden, followed by Rich.
Hi, Raj. Thank you very much for
Hi.
your presentation. I apologize in advance that if you already mentioned this, the question I have on your presentation, I missed it. So the question I have is, I read some time ago, India has like $682 billion in debt as of last year. And there is, in spite of unequal education, jobs, social mobility access because of the caste system, and also India is one of the most corrupt countries, as much as Turkey, in the world, and it has low GDP. How do you explain the rapid industrialization? Do you think the credit should be given to the Modi government? Thank you.
680 billion is their foreign exchange reserves. That's their foreign exchange reserve. That's a positive side. They have debt, and I don't have the figures right now, but their debt to GDP ratio is quite low. I think it's, I shouldn't say it because I haven't checked lately. It used to be about 30%, so which is considered not high. About the poverty, well, poverty is reducing, as I mentioned. India is still a poor country, and corruption is there, but India is less corrupt now than, say, 20 years ago or 40 years ago. So corruption means you gain something by trickery, not by production. That's one, I guess, I don't, if you will consider that as a definition, or taking money, bribe or something. But Modi is actually attacked those kind of things, just like Xi Jinping has done that, and sometimes unfairly. I mean, very intrusively. State has gotten into it. I mean, when I was young, I had to pay, because always India, everything was shortage. I had to pay 5 rupees to get a sleeping berth at the middle of the night to pass it on to a conductor in the train. But now it's all done by computerization, and so as these systems advance, you can reduce the petty corruption. Now, big scale corruption, I don't have a idea, but Indian economy is growing. As long as economy keeps growing, corruption can go along. I mean, the United States was one of the most corrupt countries when it was growing up. I mean, nobody could match it. So I think corruption doesn't hold the development of capitalism. So it's a bad thing, but it continues. Same corruption went on in Soviet Union too. So I don't know if I answered your question or not properly.
Next is Rich, followed by Sharon. Rich, go ahead and unmute, please.
Okay, I got to mute. Okay, that's good enough. Well, whatever. Raj, this is I'm gonna my comment or question or whatever is Well, let's put it this way. You know, I've asked you many times to, I've said things like, you can't talk to me. You can't talk too much about India. I can't, there's too much to learn. You just proved that today. I'm just saying, I'm not that we shouldn't try, but I'm just saying it's the kind of thing where you have a few questions, you ask a couple questions here and there, and people ask questions today. It's great. And you said a lot, and thank you for everything that was written down, and I could read it while you were talking. But I'm just saying, it's like where there were a number of questions, now there's 1,000 questions. It's like a lifetime effort. You know, no, I don't mean people shouldn't try. I just think it's what you showed to me, how important it is, and how I don't want to say player, but you know, interconnected all this world. What do you call it? You know, going on, all the detailed little things between potentials here for the war and this and that, and the economy interconnected, all that stuff. It's just a really complex. So I'm saying thank you. Bottom line is, and it can't be enough. More. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Take it over. Move it over there.
All right, Sharon, please go ahead.
Thank you. I have a comment and then a question. So I'm one of the people who does not think that China is capitalist. I believe that China is a growing socialist country, and that since 1980s, China has been using certain capitalist market mechanisms in order to accumulate capital in the service of the socialist goal. And the first one being bringing all the people out of abject poverty. So in 1981, which was 32 years after the victory of the Communist Revolution, 80%, roughly 80% of Chinese people still lived in poverty. And the World Bank definition of poverty is less than $1.90 a day, but it's hard. I don't agree with that definition. I think a Marxist materialist definition of being out of poverty is something like, in general, having a future for yourself and your children, and a future of a more comfortable life. And that consists of some simple things like having indoor plumbing and having sufficient food, of course, and having sufficient good health care, access to health care, and having access to education. And in those terms, it's gone from around 80% down to something like under 10% of people in China still suffering in poverty. And that was because of the reforms that were instituted in the 1980s. When I was in China in 2010, they were boasting, I got to watch CCTV, which is so conveniently in English. They were boasting that they had 400 million, had achieved 400 million people out of poverty. Now it's 750 million. So they've doubled the number of people that have come out of poverty in about 15 years. My question, though, has more to do with current times in India, among Indian people. So it's generally true that many countries in the global South export some of their best members of the working class to the global North. And it's noticeable. We know that there are, large numbers of Filipino workers who come here and their children get raised by their grandparents back home. And I've noticed that a lot of people who have H-2B visas to work in high tech, at least around here in Silicon Valley, are from India. And I'm just wondering, how how that factors in, and how large is it in terms of disrupting the growth of the working class in India, that many people, there's this apparently some kind of brain drain.
Yeah, this theory of brain drain was very popular when I first came to the United States. And I stayed here because my wife wanted to stay here. I wanted to go back, so we settled here as a couple. Now, most Indians now, and this is before Trump started threatening immigrants, this is before I'm talking about that, were already a trend that they'll come here, work here, but then they'll send money to buy property in India and do things. So now they are saying, given the hostility to immigrants, which goes up and down in the United States, as you know, throughout history, depending on the economy. So brain drain is not an issue for India. In fact, what happens, a lot of these people sent money and some of them became entrepreneurs in India. So it's a complex question. I have not examined it. India doesn't have that problem of brain drain as was thought of in the 1960s. And it was an American theory. I don't know if it was true, but certainly is not an issue right now. As to socialism, you and I have some difference on what is socialism. In my opinion, the purpose of socialism is more than to lift people out of poverty. Because under Modi's government and one before that together, they have lifted 270 million people of Indians out of extreme poverty. So extreme poverty has gone down to 5.3%. It's even reducing in countries like Pakistan, but as I mentioned, it's more. So I think it's a question of if you are allowing people to be exploited by entrepreneurs and they work as wage laborers, that's capitalism for me, and exporting those commodities. So the workers are working not for the needs of the society. So that's my definition. You and I probably don't agree completely on but China definitely has improved. So and so in India also with the this is like the old Republican Party thing, rising tide lifts all boat kind of a thing. So for me, from my sense, that's not sufficient. That's part of it, but not sufficient as a definition of socialism.
All right, we're past our proposed end time, but we did start a couple of minutes late, so let's honor the one hand that remains raised. Kishore, go ahead. Let's make it brief, please. Raj, Kishore, thank you. Oh, you're muted. Kishore, you're muted.
Sorry, that's my old habit of talking when I'm on mute. Anyway, I'll make it quick. So regarding Chinese hegemony, I think China does have a history of being an expansionist nation. Now, it will not be colonial in the traditional sense. Neo-colonialism has taken, or imperialism has taken many forms, right? So I think China is already encroaching upon lands in India. And another point I wanted to make was, when we talk about nations, it's not one uniform entity we should be looking at. I think we are really looking at the relations between the elite classes in China and elite class in India. And I think today they are in alliance because Mr. Modi's best friend, industrialist partner, his brother, has a Chinese partner. So they may talk tough with each other, but underlying, they are connected. And the same thing goes between India and Pakistan. But more about that some other time. That was my comment.
Raj, anything to add before we close?
No, that's his opinion. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, thank you so much for attending and participating in today's Sunday morning Marxist Forum, ICSS. We'd like to remind you that you can sign up for email notifications for our programs at icssmarx.org. Where you will be able to find links to this video recording as well as those of our past programs, and contact us with feedback, suggestions, etc. Please consider making a donation to support our Sunday morning programs. You can do that at the link for Buy Me a Coffee on our website, or you can contact us for more information. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.